Welcome to a virtual tour of the Central Kentucky Wildlife Refuge, located off Highway 37 on Carpenter Creek Road near Parksville, Kentucky, about 13 miles southwest of Danville in Boyle County. This refuge protects 500 acres in the Knobs region that borders the outer bluegrass and consists of hundreds of isolated, steep-sloping, often cone-shaped hills. Central Kentucky Wildlife Refuge was established in 1965, mostly by the efforts of William Kemper and Dr. Roy Ellis, a physics professor at Centre College. Their primary goal was to set aside an area that would assure a permanent sanctuary for plant and animal life native to Central Kentucky. Kemper, Ellis, and other founding members intended the refuge to be a place for observation, study, conservation, and education. Today, the refuge continues to operate as a nonprofit organization with a board, education directors, caretakers, and a land manager. It relies heavily on volunteers and donations for day-to-day maintenance and major projects. You can become a member of the Central Kentucky Wildlife Refuge. Members receive an annual newsletter and participate in an annual meeting and other events that showcase the beauty of the area. Central Kentucky Wildlife Refuge is open to everyone free of charge from dawn to dusk every day. Some of its features include the Mary Ashby Cheek Nature and Education Center, a bird blind with stadium seating, a gazebo and multiple observation benches, a pavilion, 4 ponds, an on-site caretaker whose home sits adjacent to the bird blind, and events such as guided wildflower walks, stargazing nights, birding hikes, and school field trips. It is important not to disturb the wildlife in the refuge. Picking flowers and going off trail are prohibited. Pets are allowed in the refuge as long as they are leashed. There is usually access to a porta potty, but it has been closed due to COVID-19. Likewise, the Bird Blind and Nature Center are closed due to the virus. Please visit the Central Kentucky Wildlife Refuge website for updates on the reopening process. Fortunately, nature is not closed. The refuge trails, totaling about 7 miles, offer beautiful views of woods, meadows, and ponds. Most of the 12 trails are easy to moderate hikes and are about a half a mile or less in length. Exceptions are the Circle Trail, which is 2.2 miles, and the Blue and Ridge Trails, which are labeled strenuous, though they are still only about a half mile long. The refuge is a haven for birds of all kinds. Even when the bird blind is closed, you can easily spot or hear a couple dozen species in one hike. Keep an eye out for purple finches, evening grosbeaks, towhees, American goldfinches, and nuthatches, just to name a few. There are boxes all along the meadow to attract eastern bluebirds. Bluebirds are cavity nesters who enjoy meadows and open grasses surrounded by patchy woodlands. Male bluebirds bring nest materials to the boxes and go in and out while waving their wings to impress the females. A pair of bluebirds might raise more than one brood of chicks in a season. Bluebirds eat mostly insects, so if you offer some mealworms at a feeder and put up a bluebird box, you might draw them to your yard. You'll find beauty no matter where you look in the woods. Look up at the canopy to find birds, dazzling sunlight peeking through the branches, and squirrel nests. Look down to find ferns, bluebells, hawksbeard, and sorrel. Oak and hickory trees are abundant. You might also find maple and black walnut. Keep an eye out for young sassafras trees. Sassafras is a common tree in Kentucky and is one of the first trees to grow in abandoned fields with the help of visiting birds that love to eat the tree's fruit. They also like sparse woods. Oil extracts of sassafras roots and bark were used by Native Americans. European settlers used sassafras medicinally. Although its usefulness as a cure-all was disappointing, the tree's pleasant-tasting bark have been used to flavor tea, root beer, and candy, and for scenting perfume and soap. A full-grown sassafras tree has pretty yellow flowers. The ponds at Central Kentucky Wildlife Refuge are full of activity, especially on a hot summer day. Red-eared slider turtles sun themselves on logs. The red-eared slider gets its name from the small red stripe around its ears and from its ability to slide quickly off of rocks and logs into the water. These turtles are actually popular pets around the world. Due to people releasing them back into the wild, they've become invasive in some areas. If you watch the pond quietly toward evening time, you might catch a glimpse of a muskrat. Muskrats look a lot like beavers that also live in the ponds at the refuge, but they're significantly smaller and have long, skinny tails. When a muskrat swims, you can see the whole length of its body. You'll only see the big squarish head of the beaver when it's swimming. Muskrats like to build burrows in the banks of slow-running water like marshes or ponds. Sometimes they'll build up conical-shaped piles of marsh grass around their dens. If you can't spot a muskrat, look for its home. Skimming across the surface of the pond are banded pennant dragonflies. It is one of several species of common skimmers found throughout Kentucky. Dragonflies are considered beneficial insects because they eat mosquitoes and other pests. You'll also see them darting across the meadow flowers looking for prey. The refuge has a large managed meadow that is a certified monarch way station. To provide food for the monarchs and other butterflies, there are many flowers, including ragwort, dianthus, daisies, and yarrow. Yarrow is a perennial herb that serves as food for insects and people. It's been called poor man's pepper because of its sharp, bitter taste. Yarrow has also been called carpenter weed because woodworkers used it to stop the bleeding of cuts and wounds that occurred during their work. Most of the wild yarrow you will encounter is white, but it also comes in a variety of colors. We hope you've enjoyed this virtual tour of the Central Kentucky Wildlife Refuge. While you are out walking around Kentucky this summer, see if you can spot a bluebird, a sassafras tree, a red-eared slider turtle, a muskrat, or its home, a dragonfly, and some yarrow. Thanks for listening.